Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss the warning that Brexit is going to make dealing with pandemics such as this much more difficult in the future. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, Jeremy Hunt, who's a senior member of the Conservative Party and ran against Boris Johnson for the leadership last year, has been warning that outside of the EU, we will fail to make the full benefits of EU trials. Now, this, he says, isn't an inevitable consequence of Brexit itself, but an inevitable consequence of Boris Johnson's interpretation of Brexit. And although the current crisis may well be a once-in-a-century emergency, perhaps, maybe, pandemics do occur with worrying regularity. The reasons for this are clear enough. We live in a global community. People travel the world, which means that anything hitching a lift on that person is also travelling the world fairly quickly and easily. As much as Brexiteers would like us all to become hermits, that is not going to be realistic when you put it into practice. Indeed, we can already see just how damaging Brexit has been to our response to the crisis. And again, I emphasise not Brexit as a concept, but the particular form of Brexit that Boris Johnson has pushed ahead with. We have refused to get in on the EU's bulk buying of medical equipment because Boris Johnson has made it his mission to have absolutely no links with the EU at all, even in areas where it's pretty obvious it's of mutual benefit. Any shared area of cooperation is deemed to be unacceptable. He and his ilk have also spent the last few years talking about promised freedoms with Brexit. So any moves to restrict our freedoms, even in an emergency which demands it, is being carried out very slowly indeed. Perhaps too slowly for thousands of people who are going to pay the ultimate price for our political inertia. If Brexit had never been a thing, then we would be getting far more medical supplies. It wouldn't even be an issue. Of course we'd be involved in the EU's procurement scheme. We would have been benefiting from the clinical trials taking place into effective vaccines, something we're not able to do ourselves. We'd be getting them relatively quickly when they've been developed and cleared, and cheaply as well. Once, like I say, they've been cleared for use. There would still be the capacity for government incompetence, of course there would. We can see in the EU, individual member states have essentially been taking a lead on what that individual country does, because do you know what? They don't do what the EU says, they are the EU. But with a clown like Johnson in charge, we still might not have mass testing as we should, because that's got nothing to do with the EU. Membership of the EU wouldn't have changed that at all. We also may still have imposed lockdown measures too late. Again, that would have had nothing to do with Brexit manoeuvring. We don't know when this crisis is going to be over for us, or even if we will leave it. We don't know what world we're going to leave this crisis in. Is it going to be a world where this virus is beaten, or is it going to be one where we're going to have to learn to live with it? But what we do know is that we're not going to recover as quickly as many other wealthy nations. We also know that there will be future pandemics. There have been several in my adult life, and there will be more to come. And this is why Jeremy Hunt, who is the chair of the House of Commons Select Committee on Health, has poured scorn on a number of government policies. And remember, these are government policies. These are not inevitable results of Brexit. So it produced a report that said that the UK's, proposals will mean we can't protect imports of isotopes needed for, say, the treatment of cancer, for example. We won't be able to get materials needed to carry out medical research ourselves, let alone form international groups to carry out research more effectively. We're not going to be taking part in any international information sharing as part of the Brexit plans, which will be a cost to everyone, not just in the UK. We carry out a lot of important medical research in the UK, which benefits the whole world. But we don't do it alone. We aren't going to be part of the European Medicines Agency, which used to be based in the UK. There's been quite a lot of agencies, EU agencies, that were based in the UK, providing a lot of jobs that have now been moved because of this brainless idea for national isolation. This particular agency is involved in health campaigns, but it also allows for the efficient and safe trialling of medicines. So when a new medicine is developed, it can be trialled fairly quickly while still maintaining safety. Something that will be needed once this vaccine is eventually produced. You don't really want it taking longer and longer before it can be actually used on the general population. We've pulled out of this scheme in the UK. We don't have anything to replace it as yet. And when we do, it won't be as effective. So not only for the current pandemic, but for future ones as well. What that means is, in real terms, what that's going to mean is we'll have to wait longer for the treatment compared to other EU members. A couple of reasons. First of all, we won't be developing themselves because we're pulling out of those schemes. And also, we won't have the setup needed to give a license to these new medicines very quickly. And we're also going to have to pay more for the privilege, of course. We're only going to get access to these new medicines and vaccines at full economic cost once everyone involved in the actual development has had what they need. And my own personal thoughts on this is that Boris Johnson, especially since becoming Prime Minister, has demonstrated ably that he only ever has fair weather thinking. He's incapable of acting in a crisis. A pandemic is an emergency. As such, the systems for dealing with them don't enter into his thinking. Much the same when President Trump was ripping funding from the US pandemic unit a couple of years ago. He was probably thinking, that's a lot of money to be spending on something we're not using right now. 2 years later, you sort of could have used it there, Mr. President. And it's the same thing with Boris Johnson's spending promises for the election manifesto. Economists were warning that there's no margin for error in these. It's all assuming the economy is going to grow at a particular rate. If anything happens to knock the economy, Brexit, for example, then there's no margin for error. Your spending plans are completely sunk. But he doesn't think about rainy days. He's an exceptionally wealthy man who has never taken a knock in his life that has stopped him doing what he wants. So I guess his brain has never been wired to account for future problems, I suppose. Which is fine for him, because nothing he does, no matter how badly he fails and no matter how well he succeeds, he's still going to be a very wealthy man who can still live his life as much as he would like. But it's an exceptionally dangerous position to take for the country, which can't do that. And the sooner this way of thinking is removed from government, the better. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.